In the video Zoology, What is it? We talked about how zoology takes on the portion of biology that concentrates within ecology and evolution. What we're going to do in this video is talk about how ecology and evolution play a role in zoology in more depth. Remember, we talked about how zoology is a very broad topic and how within zoology there are several sub-specialties that scientists can look into. And the reason for that is animals are very diverse. For instance, there's more than 20,000 different species of fish. There's more than 300,000 species of beetles. When we generalize groups of organisms, we tend to do so from an evolutionary perspective and from an ecology perspective. So we're going to spend the next couple slides talking about that. We're going to start by taking a look at the evolutionary perspective. Animals share a common evolutionary past that has shaped their future. When focusing on the evolutionary aspect, we're going to focus on certain key concepts that include understanding why animals look and act the way that they do, understanding why they live in particular geographical regions and habitats, and why they share traits with other related animals. And that last one, we are going to spend a lot of time talking as we move from one phyla to the next, taking a look at what do they have in common with their evolutionary predecessor, but what is unique to them. Biochemical evolution is a very important portion of how we're moving forward in the evolutionary perspective. Taking a look at the genetic code of various different animals in their populations over time and how that leads to new species and biodiversity has come a long way in the last 20 years. Groups of individuals are more closely related if they share more of their DNA with each other than with individuals in other groups. So by comparing the DNA of different organisms, we can tell how closely related they are. We can tell where the change in the DNA took place. And based on their common ancestor, we can also start to place when they separated from their common ancestor in history. The other aspect that we cannot ignore is the ecological aspect. Ecology is the study of the relationships between organisms and their environment, including other organisms. So that's going to become important to animals as we talk about what are they eating, what eats them, those kinds of issues. The ecological perspective also pulls in that human aspect because we humans depend on animals. Among other things, we depend on them for food, clothing, and medicines. Our dependence on animals oftentimes goes unnoticed until our human activities have upset the ecological balance. There are two pictures here that I want to talk about. This first one here on the left is horseshoe crabs, and horseshoe crabs are very common to see in the Chesapeake Bay and the Atlantic Ocean. So you've probably seen them before. What you may not realize is that we actually capture horseshoe crabs and we use their blood for medical purposes. Oftentimes we take too much blood from them and several of them don't survive the trip back to the ocean, unfortunately. And then over here on the right is a picture of the snakehead fish. You're probably too young to remember this, but there was someone who thought, wow, that snakehead fish is really cool. I'd like to have it as a pet. So they got it as a pet, and then they released it into the Crofton River in Anne Arundel County, where it proceeded to eat absolutely everything because it's an invasive species. It doesn't belong there. And by moving species from one environment to another, there's no predator. So it could eat everything. And what's cool about the snakehead fish is it can go on land for short distances. So they wanted to catch that snakehead fish before it got into the bay. It was pretty fun in times. Feel free to Google it if you don't believe me. So with humans devastating a lot of the populations, not just plant but animal as well, the global population is at the root of almost all the environmental problems. By the year 2050, the world population is estimated that it's going to be 9.3 billion. That's a lot of people, and those people need a lot of resources. Human population is stressing the world resources. We have deforestation, food production, and global climate change that are stressing our environment. And by stressing the environment, that's also going to stress the animals that live in the environment. Human overpopulation may be the largest concern because it stimulates the rest of the ecological problems. It's what leads to the deforestation, the food production, and ultimately the global climate change that could be catastrophic. I hope this was helpful.